The first monster on the list is the Ghost Girl. The Ghost Girl is a monster that targets the most paranoid player. You become the most paranoid by turning your camera the most or making sudden mouse movements too often. She also targets you if you become critically injured, are holding items worth 150 points or more, or are considered the most insane. Insanity is increased based on how long you are inside the building. To tell if you're being targeted by the Ghost Girl, you can look out for things like this: lights flickering, quiet whispers from a female voice, or your hearing becomes muffled. If you're being haunted by the Ghost Girl, the best course of action would be to stay in the ship and keep the doors closed often. Next is the Coil-Head. Coil-Heads will stay frozen in place as long as the player is staring at them. If you're familiar with SCP-137, it's a very similar concept. When looking away from a Coil-Head, it allows them to move toward you extremely fast. If the Coil-Head is far enough away from you, you might have a second or two to look away before it reaches you. To escape the Coil-Head, you can lead it to an exit by walking backwards toward the exit, keeping the Coil-Head in your line of sight. If you position the Coil-Head properly, you'll be able to exit through the door while still staring at it. Alternatively, you can have a teammate lock the Coil-Head's position while you search for loot or escape. It is possible to trap a Coil-Head behind a door and get out of range, but it's very unlikely that it will forget about you. Next is the Thumper. If the Thumper spots you, it'll make a loud roar before chasing. It can then gain speed that is too fast to outrun normally. Thumpers cannot hear the player and rely purely on line of sight. To escape the Thumper, the best course of action is to take as many turns down hallways as you can, since they lose speed while turning. To fight the Thumper, you'll need a shovel or something you can hit them with. The Thumper will go down in 4 to 6 hits. The best way to go about doing this is to stand on a railing, since the Thumper won't be able to reach you and fight back. Next is the Bracken. Evidence has shown that the Brackens tend to hunt players who are alone. If you encounter a Bracken alone and it decides to hunt you, it can be scared away with a quick glance. If you stare at it for too long, however, it will become more aggressive. After about 4 to 5 seconds, it will attack you. To defeat the Bracken, one player needs to hit it with a zap gun while sitting on a railing, and the other beats it with a shovel. It should take about 6 hits. Next is the Jester. When the Jester is first spotted by a player, it will be somewhat harmless for around 30 seconds. After around 30 seconds, it'll start winding itself up, and after a certain point, a skull will pop out of the box. The Jester will start to increase its speed and become faster than a player's running speed and instantly kill them upon contact. The best way to fight or escape a Jester is to just leave the facility once the skull has sprung up and wait about 20 seconds before re-entering. It's generally a good idea to avoid going back inside though. Up next is bunker spiders. A bunker spider hunts after one of its webs are touched, and can be easily killed if a player sits on a railing and hits it with a shovel, or walks backwards while swinging. They are known to be fairly slow and easy to outrun. Circuit bees can be found outside on most planets and stay close to their hives at all times. To avoid them, just keep a safe distance from the hive. Even if they chase you, they don't stray far from their home. The beehives can be sold, but it usually isn't worth it. But if you do want to sell the beehive, the best place to place it after you pick it up is the outside balcony furthest from the door. But generally, there is a high chance that the circuit bees will kill you if you do this. The Eyeless Dog is the next on the list. They can be found outside, usually during the night or the evening. It cannot see, but has an extremely good ability to hear. It can hear all noises made by the player, including their microphone. If you're quiet enough, you might be able to whisper without alerting them. To escape an Eyeless Dog, make as little noise as possible and remain crouched. It's important to note that if the Eyeless Dog is nearby, it will enter your ship and try to attack you. Next is the Baboon Hawk. The Baboon Hawk can be found outside and will only attack players when they are in equal or greater numbers in comparison to said players. If there are less of them than you, they tend to follow you from a distance. The Baboon Hawks will attack regardless of numbers if a player comes too close to them. The Earth Leviathan is a giant worm that lives in the ground and can be found outside. They typically shoot out of the ground to attack. Before they attack, you will hear a loud rumble and see black particles forming where the worm is about to surface. To survive this encounter, sprint in the opposite direction of where the worm is about to surface and hope for the best. The Forest Keeper can be found roaming around outside. They're extremely big compared to other monsters and want to eat the player. They have great eyesight but not very good hearing. If you're being chased, your best option is to try to break line of sight and use your environment to your advantage. They cannot enter the ship but will wait for for you, and possibly damage you while you're inside. It is possible to use a stun grenade or zap gun on a forest keeper while it's chasing you. You can also be teleported away to get away safely. The Hoarding Bug is very similar to the player in the fact that they will loot the same items the player does. The Hoarding Bug will find an area inside to create a nest and bring objects to. To avoid being attacked, keeping distance is the best option. If the Hoarding Bug is attempting to attack you, you can drop an item of value and the bug will take it instead of attacking you. If you choose to fight the Hoarding Bug, a few hits with a shovel will take it down. If you find a Hoarding Bug's nest and take one of its items, it will permanently be aggressive toward you until the item is returned. Hygroders, more commonly known as slimes, usually spawn in hallways. They are slow, and as long as you don't walk into them or get cornered by them, they're very easy to avoid. To get past them, climbing on a railing is the best way to go. You can also trap them behind doors and take 1 to 2 hits from them without them taking you down. Snare Fleas can be found hanging from ceilings. They drop down once a player walks near and attaches to their head, suffocating them. For this reason, a lot of people call them face huggers. In single player, the Snare Flea will let go once you hit critical health, but in multiplayer, the only way to get them off is if a teammate assists you by hitting them off of you with a weapon. Teleporting or leaving the building will also get rid of the Snare Flea attached to the player. Spore Lizards are rarely seen, but spawn inside buildings. They are generally harmless and will only make noises and open their mouths to try to intimidate you. They can bite, but only do small amounts of damage before retreating. Manticoil and roaming Locusts are in the game purely for aesthetics. They spawn outside and pose no threat to the player. Thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoy no-nonsense guides, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more.